Our present campus up at New Paltz, up at the Port Ewan campus, was a building that we leased. Our current Career Technical Education Center was a building that we leased in 1980. It was a 10-year lease with an option to purchase at the end of the 10-year period for $2.5 million. It had been a shirt factory prior to that, so it was converted in the late 70s to classroom space. BOCES leased it for 10 years and had an option to buy it, part of that lease, at the end of the lease for $2.5 million. If we didn't purchase it at the end of the lease, it would have reverted back to the original owners, and at that point, we would have had to convert it back to its previous use so that the owners could use it. The decision was made in 1989 by the BOCES at that point to go out and to purchase the building, as well as go out for a referendum, because when a BOCES acquires property, it requires a countywide referendum. And so they decided at that point to purchase the CTE site for $2.5 million to improve the building, infrastructure, et cetera, and to construct a 2-story wing on the special and alternative education. That all came out to $13.25 million. At the same time, they also added what was now the administrative building on the New Paltz campus, and they built a storage garage on the New Paltz campus. Total price of that package was $15.2 million. It went out for a countywide vote and passed 2-1 back in 1989. $15.2 million in 1989, adjusted for inflation, today would be $33.6 million. And I just put that out as a point of reference. The total renovation project that we're proposing is $39 million. And that's the total cost of the entire project. However, not every district would obviously contribute the same amount, and the formula that is used for a renovation project is based on your resident weighted adjusted daily attendance. And right now, Wallkill's enrollment represents 14.4% of the entire county, so you would pay 14.4% of the total cost of the project. So Wallkill's share would be $5.6 million. And also, since this is a renovation-only project, there's no acquisition of property. It does not require a countywide vote. It only requires an affirmative vote from the 8 component districts of Ulster-BOCES. So we're not going out for a countywide vote. We're simply making presentations to each of the 8 component districts of Ulster-BOCES. Our financial advisors who are here tonight, I believe also your financial advisor, will kind of walk you through the financial implications for the school district. It's a complicated project. In a typical high school, I was a high school principal for a bunch of years. If you did a construction project, you could close off certain aspects of the building and do construction and relocate classrooms, crunch classrooms, which are usually utilized about 80% of the time. You move it up to about 95% of the time. And you can do construction essentially at certain times during the school year. Our facility up at the Port Ewan campus is not the same. I don't have a spare auto shop. I don't have a spare cosmetology lab. I don't have a spare welding shop. I don't have a spare auto body shop. And so it restricts our construction period to a very short window each year, usually from the middle part of June until the middle part of August, at which point we'd have to reconfigure the building to get ready for kids coming back to school in September. So our CTE programs stop usually around the end of the second week of June, and then that's when construction or renovation could start, and then we'd have to shut the renovation down in the middle of August, the latter part of August, so that we could get the building ready for kids to reoccupy it in September. So we estimate, because of that kind of complication of construction and renovation, we would have very short windows, and therefore the project would take probably as much as 4 school years to complete. I'm going to walk you through some of the challenges, but one of the major challenges is that we have to estimate the cost of labor and materials even to the last year of the project. And when you see the timetable that I've laid out, It wouldn't be 4 years from this year, it would be 4 years from 2 years from now, because it might take upwards of 2 years to develop the plans, the specific plans, submit them to SED, and get the SED approvals. So here's the estimated project timeline. We're in that green area right now. On October 5th, the Ulster Board of Education approved the intermunicipal agreement, which is essentially the promise that if you approved it, would be a promise to pay your share of the $39 million package. Between October 6th and December 1st, myself, representatives of our financial advisory team from Bernard Donegan, will travel to each of the component boards and essentially advise them about what this project involves and how this is moving forward. Then between December 7th and December 16th, we'd be asking the local board, the component board of educations, to vote on the intermunicipal agreement. Assuming that vote is affirmative, and it has to be unanimous with all of the 8 component boards. It doesn't have to be unanimous within a board, but it has to be unanimous between all of the 8 boards. Assuming we get that, we would move into the design phase. That would be detailed plans. We have plans now, but they're not the level of detail that have to be submitted to SED. Once we get the okay that the project can move forward, we would have our architects and engineers develop those detailed plans. We estimate that would be take somewhere between 10 months and a year to get that done. Probably 10 months, but we're being conservative. So it's from January 1st, 2022 to the end of the year, detailed plans completed. Then we would submit those plans up to SED for approval. Right now, the last time it was up to the State Education Department, there was about a 10-month delay in getting approval for plans. So we built that into our schedule. We would assume that between January 1st and October 30th, 2023, plans would be approved by State Ed, and then from November 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024, we would do the RFPs for purchasing materials and equipment, et cetera, which would mean that starting July 1st, 2024, we would be in year 1 of construction. The way we've scheduled the program, it looks like about a 4-year construction schedule because of that very compressed timeline at CTE. And so therefore, in each of those 4 years, by June 30th, 2028, the project would be completed. Again, we're projecting in our estimates inflation, cost of materials, cost of labor. We've built in factors, and we want to make sure that we have enough money to finish the project. But obviously, projecting what the world is going to be like in terms of labor, supply chain, et cetera, in the 2027, 2028 year, really the 26, 27 year, because that's when we'll be purchasing things for the 27, 28 year, is not an exact science. John? In terms of the project breakdown, about 54% or about $21 million is at the CTE Center. At the Port Ewan Special Ed Center, another 10, almost $11 million. So together, that comprises about 81%. Those are student-occupied buildings, student-occupied spaces. And then at the New Paltz site, about $7.3 million. That's not a student-occupied space. And we're talking about doing infrastructure upgrades. Much of the equipment in these buildings date back to 1989, and some of the equipment in the CTE Center dates back to the lease period before 1989. And you all know, because you've done capital projects in your own buildings, the world of technology has improved the efficiency of systems and things like that. So we believe that we realize some savings after all of this is done in terms of utilities and things like that. Project scope, and it really repeats for both the CTE Center and Port Ewan Center, Special Ed Center, HVAC replacement. We've all gone through the pandemic. Ventilation, we all tried to increase the filtration systems. We're talking about systems that were built in 1989. I even said to the engineers, can I put MERV 13 filters on top of the exhaust and duct tape them? And he said, you'd burn out the motors, okay? You know, and so we have kind of struggled through all of the same things. This would be a full HVAC upgrade system, more efficient lighting, fire alarm systems have to be upgraded, envelope repairs, masonry, windows, doors, and spatial reconfiguration. Again, we're designing a CTE center for the world of work in the 2030 decade. Well, you know, and so we're reconfiguring our space within the envelope of the building. Bathroom repairs and upgrades and site. Similarly, at the New Paltz campus, same kind of things. Lighting upgrades, fire alarm systems, bathrooms, envelope repairs, roofing, and site work as well. If you were to break it down, about 64%, 63% is HVAC, electrical, finish interior work, and the special construction is the fire alarm system. But about 13, almost a third of the cost, is total fees for the architect, engineer, construction manager, 20% contingency, which is typically built into any construction project. We've had to also add inflation escalation, which we've varied in each of the years. It's easier to project, not an exact science. Inflation in the near years, it's harder to project further out. So we've built that escalation into the system. Ulster County, just so you get a sense of, you know, how our CTE center is utilized. I'm pretty proud of the fact that when you look at the percentage, as you all know, our CTE center serves juniors and seniors for the county. Looking back from the 12-13 year to the present, to 19-20 school year, that's the last year that I have data from the state. We've averaged 26% of the county's juniors and seniors go to our CTE center. When I compare that to the rest of the state, we are either the leading or the second leading CTE center in terms of percentage of juniors and seniors served. Most of them are in the low teens. We're at 26%. And then when I look at Wallkill, CTE enrollment from 12-13 through this current year, we've ranged enrolled at CTE Center from a low of 95, and it should be 98, to a high of 147. The average is 126, and this year we have 146 students from Wallkill Junior Senior High School attending our CTE Center. Going back to, you know, our students are your students, our schools are our buildings are your buildings. The percentage of the Wallkill High School juniors and seniors who are attending our programs, again, on the average, 24%, or said another way, 1 out of every 4 juniors and seniors attends from Wallkill High School goes through our CTE Center. Right now, this particular year, we're at 23%. You can see the ranges, always above 20%, and sometimes even into the high 20s. Again, just repeating that our students are your students, our buildings are your buildings. Go to the next one. Why now? Well, a couple of reasons. It's been almost 30 years since any major infrastructure upgrade. Each year we spend capital money on, to put temporary fixes on facility issues. And a perfect example is last year I got a call, one of our chiller motors, a 1989 chiller, burned out. Okay, there's 2 chillers on the CTE campus. One of the chiller motors burned out. It's a 1989 part replacement. There's only 2 used chiller motors available in the country. It cost us $45,000 to replace that chiller motor, and that's good money after a bad situation. And we're holding our breath on how long that used chiller motor is going to last, and what happens if the other chiller motor goes as well. Essentially, they're not made anymore. Today's dollars spent on BOCES capital projects do not count against a local district's cap calculation. That law changed in 2015. However, when it changed in 2015, as Brian knows, I'm sure, the Bureau of Finance up in Albany didn't issue the regulations to implement the change. They only implemented those regulations in the 2019 or 2020 budget, which required you all to do some back calculations to essentially apply the exception. So prior to the enactment of those changed regulations, BOCES capital counted against your cap. That's no longer the case. So that's why now. We were reluctant to do it before because we knew that that would have potentially injured your ability to raise tax dollars. Our time is now. Thank you so much for your attention. Jonah, next one, just quick. It's my pleasure to introduce a familiar face to you all, Chuck Bastian of the Bernard Donegan Group, who will review the estimated financial impact on you all. Thank you.